The museum floated in the dead space between stars, a monument to civilizations that no longer existed. Vesera pressed her crystalline hand against the display case and felt the cold glass hum beneath her touch. Inside, a single data chip rested on black velvet. Such a small thing to hold such enormous weight. For 30 years she had studied the humans. Dead humans. Gone humans. Humans who left behind empty cities and silent machines and questions that burned like acid in her mind. The chip contained their final transmission, sent 847 years ago to every corner of known space. 3 words in 6,000 languages. The Galactic Concordate had classified the audio at the highest level. Visual text only, no sound. Never sound. The words glowed on the display in human English, "We are coming." Vesera had read them 10,000 times. They still made her light cores flicker with something she didn't understand. Fear, perhaps. The humans had been dead for centuries. What could still be coming? A shadow fell across the display. Vesera turned to see Curator Mothlak, his 6 eyes blinking in sequence. The old Vryn looked tired, his carapace dulled with age. "Still here, Vesera?" His voice clicked and hummed through his translator. "Still chasing ghosts?" "Not ghosts," she replied. "Answers." Mothlak's mandibles twitched in what might have been amusement or pity. "Some answers are better left buried." The Concordate sealed that audio for good reason. 12 species went silent after hearing it, Vesera said. She had memorized every detail in the archives. Not dead, not destroyed, just withdrawn. They sealed their borders and never spoke to anyone again. Why? Mass psychological trauma. The report was clear. The report was lies. Vesera's voice sharpened. "I read the medical files. The beings who heard it didn't go mad. They went quiet. They stopped exploring, stopped expanding, as if something fundamental changed in how they saw the universe." Mothlak was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was soft. "Leave it alone, Vesera. The humans are gone. Whatever they were coming back from or going toward doesn't matter anymore." But it did matter. Vesera knew it in her core, in the way her species felt truth resonating through crystal lattices. She had spent 3 decades piecing together fragments. The humans hadn't died from war. No plague had swept their world. No asteroid had cracked their planet. They had simply left. Every last one of them, 10 billion humans, vanished in a single day. Their cities remained intact, lights still burning, meals half-eaten on tables, as if they had all simply decided to walk away from everything they had ever built. That night, Vesera returned to her research station. The small quarters felt suffocating with stacks of data tablets and holographic projections. Human faces stared at her from frozen images. Scientists, artists, children, all gone to wherever the broadcast had called them. Her terminal chimed. An anonymous message. Vesera's core light flickered brighter as she opened it. "You want to hear what they really said? I can provide the original audio file. Unfiltered, unedited. Meet me at the following coordinates." The price listed made Vesera's entire body dim. More credits than she would earn in 3 lifetimes. But attached to the message was a sample. Just 5 seconds. Her manipulator hesitated over the play button. She pressed it. Sound filled her quarters. 3 words in human English, spoken by thousands of voices in perfect unison, but beneath the words something else. A frequency that made her crystal structure vibrate. Mathematics encoded in tone. And underneath that, deeper still, something that felt like gravity or time or the space between stars. The sample ended. Vesera stood motionless for 17 minutes, her consciousness reeling. She began to sell everything she owned. 3 weeks later, she met the data broker in a forgotten station orbiting a red dwarf. The creature was Shakrel, all tentacles and secrets. It didn't ask why she wanted the file. It didn't care. It simply took her credits and handed her a quantum-locked data core. "Don't say I didn't warn you," the broker gurgled through its translator. 47 species heard this. 12 went silent. 6 destroyed every copy they had. 1 species committed mass suicide 3 days after the broadcast. "Still want it?" Vesera took the core. "Why do you have it?" The broker's eye stalks writhed. "Because someone will always pay for dangerous knowledge. And because I'm curious what you'll do with it. Will you listen? Will you run? Will you finally leave the humans buried?" Vesera left without answering. She knew what she would do. She had known for 30 years. Back in her quarters, she researched deeper. The archive spoke of Earth, the human homeworld. The Concordat had quarantined the Sol system 800 years ago. In all that time, 43 expeditions had entered. Not one had returned. Not one had sent a signal back. Whatever the humans had become, whatever they were coming back as, they had left something behind. Something that swallowed ships and silence alike. Vesra held the data core up to the light. It pulsed with inner darkness. She thought about Mothlak's warning. About the species that had gone silent. About 10 billion humans walking away from their civilization in perfect synchronization. We are coming. Not we came. Not we are here coming. Present continuous. An action still in progress after 847 years. Vesera made her decision. She would listen to the full broadcast. She would understand what the humans had said, what they had heard, what they had become, and then she would go to Earth. Some answers were worth dying for. She just hoped death was the worst thing waiting in the dark. The research station hung in the crushing gravity well of a neutron star, shielded by technology most species didn't understand. This was where the Galactic Concordat kept its most dangerous knowledge. Weapons that could crack planets. Diseases that had killed civilizations. Information that broke minds. Commander Thrace waited in the docking bay, his compound eyes tracking every movement. The insectoid officer had survived 40 campaigns and 3 assassination attempts. Nothing surprised him anymore. But the message from Vesera had come close. She arrived 3 hours later, her crystalline form refracting the station's harsh lights into rainbow patterns. She carried a small container close to her body. You shouldn't have come here. Thrace clicked through his translator. This station is off limits to civilians. Then you shouldn't have approved my docking request. Vesera's voice carried no fear. I have something you need to hear. The human broadcast. It wasn't a question. Thrace had read her file during the flight in. 30 years obsessing over dead aliens. The Concordat already has copies. Not like this. Not unfiltered. Vesera held up the container. I found the original. Before they stripped out the subsonic layers. Before they removed what was really being said. Thrace's antennae twitched. Against his better judgment, he led her deeper into the station. They passed through 7 security checkpoints, each one more severe than the last. Finally, they reached the central analysis chamber. Dr. Solen was already waiting. The empathic being looked like liquid mercury given rough shape, constantly shifting and flowing. She was the Concordat's expert on psychological warfare, capable of feeling the emotions encoded in any communication. You brought it. Solen's voice was like wind chimes. I can feel it from here, fear, excitement, decision. The broadcast? Thrace asked. No. Her. She's already listened to it, hasn't she? Vesera's light cores dimmed. A sample. 5 seconds. And you're still standing. Interesting. Solen flowed closer. Most beings who hear even a fragment become changed. What did you experience? Understanding, Vesera said quietly. For 5 seconds I understood why they left. The chamber fell silent. Thrace's tactical implants ran probability calculations. Whatever was on that data core, it had already infected Vesera. The question was whether that infection was dangerous. Play it, he ordered. Full analysis. All frequencies. If this is some kind of mimetic weapon, the station's systems will contain it. Vesera placed the data core in the central terminal. The station's artificial intelligence spent 3 minutes just decrypting the file. When it finished, a warning flashed across every screen. Caution. Audio contains non-standard frequencies. Neurological response likely. Proceed. Thrace clicked his mandibles together. Proceed. The sound began. On the surface, it was simple. Thousands of human voices speaking in unison. We are coming. 3 words in perfect synchronization across every human language that had ever existed. Beautiful in its way. Haunting. But beneath that, something else unfolded. Solen gasped, her form rippling violently. Oh no. There's mathematics in it. Encoded in the harmonics. It's teaching us something. Thrace felt it too, vibrating through his neural implants. Formulas, equations, concepts that his mind couldn't quite grasp but recognized as truth, as if the sound was rewriting the basic assumptions about how reality worked. And deeper still, beneath even the mathematics, something vast and patient, and utterly alien. Not the humans, something else, something that had been singing to them across the light years. The playback ended after 47 seconds. The three of them stood in silence for several minutes. They were answering, Vesera finally said. For 50 years before this broadcast, humans were receiving signals from outside known space. I found references in their archives, SETI projects detecting impossible patterns, deep space arrays picking up music that shouldn't exist. At first, they thought it was natural phenomena, pulsars creating random rhythms. But it wasn't random, Selene whispered. She was still shaking. It was language. Someone was calling to them. Thrace pulled up his tactical display. Show me everything you found. For the next 6 hours, they dove into human history. Vesera had compiled everything. The signs were there looking back. 50 years before the broadcast, human culture had shifted. Their art became stranger. Their science obsessed over dark matter and quantum spaces. Their religions began talking about doors opening and walls growing thin. Most tellingly, they had been building something. There, Vesera highlighted a section of data. Human governments spent 90% of their gross planetary product on a single project in the final decade. Something in the Oort cloud at the edge of their solar system. They called it Project Gateway. What were they building? Thrace demanded. The files don't say. All technical specifications were deleted. But the resource expenditure was massive. Enough material to build a structure the size of a small moon. Selene had been quiet, processing what she had felt in the broadcast. When she spoke, her voice was different, harder. They weren't running away. They were going to meet it. Whatever was calling, they decided to answer. To go to it instead of waiting for it to come to them. Why? Thrace's warrior mind couldn't comprehend it. You don't rush toward an unknown contact. You prepare defenses. You gather intelligence. Because, Vesera said softly, they were afraid of what would happen if they didn't go. Look at this, she pulled up one final file. A human video blog from 2 days before the broadcast. A young human female smiling despite the tears on her face. We heard it singing to us, the human said, and we learned what it was really saying. It was offering us a choice. Evolve or be consumed. Ascend or be left behind. We chose to become something new. Something that can survive in the spaces between. Mom, Dad, if you're watching this later, know that I love you. Know that this is the only way. We have to go now. We have to become what it's teaching us to be. Because if we don't, the human looked directly at the camera. If we don't, something else will. And it won't be kind. The video ended. The three researchers stood in the silent chamber feeling the weight of what they had learned. Somewhere in the dark between stars, something had been singing. Humanity had listened, and they had transformed themselves to answer the call. We need to go to Earth, Thrace said quietly. We need to see what they left behind. The quarantine, Selene began, is 800 years old. And based on fear, not fact, whatever the humans became, they left us a message. We need to read it. Vesera's cores brightened. When do we leave? Thrace checked his tactical display. As soon as I can assemble a stealth team. 3 ships, 12 personnel. If we're going to break an 800-year quarantine, we do it right. But in the back of his mind, a thought echoed. The thought that had been planted by the broadcast, by the mathematics encoded in its depths. We are coming. Not we came. Not we left. Coming. Still coming. And if they were still coming, that meant they had never truly left at all. The stealth ship slipped through the outer edges of the Sol system like a shadow through deeper darkness. Thrace watched the sensor displays with all 6 of his eyes, antennae twitching at every anomaly. 800 years of quarantine. 43 expeditions that never returned, and now they were the 44th. Jupiter's orbital path is clear, the pilot reported. She was Kess, a 4-armed nav species with perfect spatial awareness. Saturn looks normal. No debris, no wreckage, no sign of the previous expeditions. That was what worried Thrace. 43 ships, thousands of crew members, all vanished without a trace. Not even debris. Vesera stood near the viewport, her crystalline form dim with concentration. Earth is the 3rd planet. The humans called it the blue marble, water and life and everything they ever loved. Picking up something, Selene announced from the sensor station. Her liquid form rippled with concern. Outer system. Beyond the 8th planet, something massive. The tactical display flickered to life. At the edge of the Oort cloud, where human comets had once drifted in frozen sleep, something waited. The structure was enormous. Larger than any ship Thrace had ever seen. Larger than most moons, that's it, Vesera whispered. Project Gateway. What they were building. The structure looked organic and mechanical at once, fast curved surfaces that might have been metal or bone, patterns of light moving across its surface in waves, and from its center a beam of pure darkness, not the absence of light but something that swallowed it. A beam pointed into deep space far beyond the galactic rim. "It's transmitting," Kess said, her voice tight. "Same signal." The 3 words, "We are coming," broadcasting on every frequency, has been for 847 years. "A lighthouse," Selene breathed. They left it as a marker, telling something out there that they answered, that they're on their way, or warning everyone else to stay away. Thrace added grimly, "Continue to Earth, carefully." The journey inward took 6 hours. 6 hours of mounting tension as they passed Mars, past the asteroid belt, entered the inner system. Earth grew on their screens. Blue and white and green, unchanged. Beautiful. "I'm reading power signatures," Kess reported. "Cities are still running. Electrical grids operational. Satellites still in orbit. It's like they just left." The ship entered Earth's atmosphere. They descended over what human records called North America, toward a city named New York. Skyscrapers reached toward the sky. Lights still burned in windows, but the streets were empty. They landed in a broad plaza. The landing gear touched concrete that had been poured 800 years ago and still held firm. The team suited up, checked their weapons, and stepped out into the dead city. It was perfect. Too perfect. Buildings stood without damage. Gardens had overgrown, but structures remained intact. Cars sat parked in neat rows, slowly being consumed by vines. And everywhere the signs of life interrupted. Thrace led them to the nearest building. The doors were unlocked. Inside, dust covered everything, but beneath it, perfection remained. They found an office. Computer screens dark but not broken. Coffee cups on desks. The liquid long since evaporated. A jacket hanging on a chair. "Look at this," Vesera called out. She stood before a wall screen, still functioning. With a touch, it came to life. A human face appeared, frozen mid-sentence. The date stamp read 847 years ago. The day of the broadcast. Selene touched the screen, letting it play. The human was speaking. "I know you'll find this eventually. Whoever you are, whatever species discovers Earth after we're gone, we left you everything. Our libraries, our histories, our mistakes and triumphs. We want you to understand why we had to leave." The human paused, looking directly at the camera. "For 50 years we heard it calling. At first we didn't understand. We thought it was radiation from pulsars or quantum noise. But it was language, mathematics. An equation that described how to step outside of normal space, how to exist in the gaps between dimensions." Another human appeared on screen, then another. A dozen faces, all speaking in turn. "We learned that every species reaches this point. When you become advanced enough, you hear it, the call from beyond, and you have to choose. Some species ignore it. They go extinct within a generation. The call consumes them slowly, madness spreading like plague. Some species fight it. They try to build shields or weapons. They all disappear. Every last one, and we chose a third option. We chose to answer, to become what it was teaching us to be." The screens showed images, humans gathering in massive crowds, holding hands, speaking in unison, and then one by one becoming transparent, fading, not dying, transforming into something that couldn't exist in 3 dimensions anymore. "We're not dead," the recorded humans said together. "We're evolved. We exist in the spaces between now, where physics works differently, where thought and matter are the same thing. It's beautiful here, terrible and beautiful, but we can't stay forever. We're building something, learning, growing, and when we're strong enough, we're coming back." The recording shifted. It showed the structure in the Oort cloud, being built by millions of humans working in silent coordination. "This is our anchor, our way home. It broadcasts our message to the dark. It tells them we're coming, and it warns you." The human faces grew serious. "If you're hearing this, if you found Earth, you need to know the truth. The call wasn't random. It's a test. The universe filters species. Only the strong survive. Only the wise evolve. We heard it. We answered, and now we're part of something vast. But we're not the first, and we won't be the last." The screen showed images of other dead civilizations, species Thrace recognized from the Museum of Dead Civilizations. All vanished at their peak. All transformed. They're with us now, in the spaces between. We're all becoming something new, something necessary, because there's something else out there, something hungry, something that feeds on civilizations that don't evolve. We felt it watching us, patient, waiting, and we understood that the call wasn't an invitation. It was recruitment. The recording began to break up. We don't have much time. The transformation is completing. But remember this, the call will come for you too. Every species hears it eventually. When it does, remember what we did. Remember that fear is the enemy. Evolution is the answer. And survival means becoming more than what you were. We are coming back, not to conquer, not to rule, to help. Because what we saw in the dark, what's waiting beyond known space, it's worse than you can imagine. And when it comes, you'll need us. The human faces began to fade, becoming translucent. The broadcast wasn't a threat. It was a promise. We are coming. We are preparing. We are becoming the shield between you and the thing that hunts us all. The screen went dark. The last words echoed in the silent building. Wait for us. Prepare yourselves. And whatever you do, when you hear the call, don't ignore it. Don't fight it. Answer it, become it, or die alone. Thrace stood motionless. His tactical mind raced through implications. The humans hadn't fled. They had enlisted in a war the Concordat didn't even know existed. Commander. Kess's voice crackled over the radio. The structure in the Oort cloud, its transmission is changing. Thrace's blood ran cold. Changing how? The countdown we detected. It just accelerated. New estimate for transmission completion, 47 hours. Completion to what? Unknown. But whatever the humans built out there, it's almost ready. And Commander, I'm detecting similar structures in 17 other dead systems, all synchronizing. Vesra's light cores burned bright. They're not coming back to one world. They're coming back everywhere, all at once. Selen's form rippled with emotions that had no name. We need to warn the Concordat. Prepare them. For what? Thrace demanded. We don't even know what's coming back, or what's chasing them. But deep down he knew. They all knew. The humans had seen something in the dark spaces between stars. Something that made transformation preferable to existence. Something that made becoming alien to your own species seem like mercy. And in 47 hours, humanity would return to normal space. Changed, evolved, armed, with knowledge from places the Concordat had never imagined. The question was whether they were coming back as saviors or as something far worse than what hunted them. The Galactic Concordat Assembly Hall had never been so full. Representatives from all 47 member species crowded the chamber, their voices creating a chaos of clicks, whistles, hums, and translated speech. Thrace stood at the central podium, his report displayed on screens that circled the vast room. 847 years ago, humanity vanished, he said, his translator carrying his words to every species present. We believed they went extinct. We were wrong. They evolved, and in 41 hours they're coming back. The hall erupted. Some species demanded immediate military action. Others wanted to flee the galaxy entirely. A few simply sat in stunned silence, processing what they had heard. High Chancellor Vex Mora, a towering being of living stone, raised one massive hand. The hall fell silent. Commander Thrace, you violated an 800-year quarantine. You brought back information that is causing panic. And now you tell us that humanity is returning. Explain why we shouldn't consider this an invasion. Thrace's antennae twitched. Because they left us a warning, Chancellor. They didn't evolve for conquest. They evolved for survival. And they're not the first species to do so. He pulled up the data Vesera had compiled, images of 17 dead civilizations. Each one had vanished at its peak. Each one had left behind structures similar to the one in Sol's Oort cloud. Each structure was counting down to the same moment. These species didn't die, Thrace continued. They transcended. They moved into dimensional spaces we don't understand, and now they're all coming back at once. Why? Vexamora demanded. Why now? Why together? Selen stepped forward, her liquid form projected onto the screens, rippling with the emotions she had felt in the human broadcast. Because something is hunting us. Something that feeds on civilizations that reach a certain level of development. The humans discovered it. They saw it waiting in the dark. And they chose to become predators before becoming prey. The hall fell into shocked silence. Finally, a representative from the Chakrel Collective spoke, its tentacles writhing. This is speculation. Fear-mongering. We have no evidence of this supposed threat. We have 17 dead civilizations, Vesera said, stepping up beside Selene. Her crystalline body refracted the hall's lights into sharp angles. We have the human recordings, and we have this. She activated a hologram. The mathematical formulas from the human broadcast appeared floating in the air, complex equations that hurt to look at directly, patterns that suggested realities beyond normal physics. I've been studying these formulas for weeks, Vesera said. They're instructions, a blueprint for consciousness transfer, for moving your mind, your entire being, into spaces between dimensions. The humans left us the key to their transformation. Why would they do that? Someone asked. Because they need us to follow, Selene answered. They're building an army. Every species that ascends joins them in the spaces between. They're gathering strength for something. Chaos erupted again. Some species began immediate preparations to attempt the transformation. Others declared it heresy and madness. The Concordat, which had held together for 3,000 years, began to fracture in real time. Thrace watched it happen with growing horror. They were tearing themselves apart over information they barely understood, and they still had 40 hours before humanity returned. He left the assembly and returned to his ship. Kes was monitoring the structures, watching as they synchronized their countdowns. It's accelerating again, she reported. Now 36 hours. Whatever triggers the return, it's building momentum. Have you found anything else in the human archives? Thrace asked. Kes pulled up files. Journals. Personal logs. People documenting their transformation. Commander, they were terrified. But they went anyway. Almost like they didn't have a choice. Show me. The recordings played. Humans saying goodbye to loved ones. Humans explaining their decision. Humans weeping as they felt their bodies begin to change. But underneath the fear, something else. Determination, purpose. One recording stood out. A human scientist, female, speaking 3 days before the broadcast. I know what we're about to become. I've seen it in the mathematics. We won't be human anymore. Not really. We'll be something vast and strange and powerful. But we'll remember. We'll remember what it was like to be small and scared and mortal. And that memory will be our anchor. That's what makes this work. That's why we can survive in the spaces between, because we remember what it's like to be afraid. Thrace felt something cold settle in his thorax. The humans weren't just evolving. They were weaponizing their own fear and memories, turning their mortality into a strength that transcendent beings lacked. Commander, Kes said urgently. New contacts. Multiple ships entering the Sol system. They're not following standard approach vectors. Thrace pulled up the tactical display. 14 ships, all different species, all heading directly for the structure in the Oort cloud. What are they doing? I'm intercepting communications. They're attempting the transformation. They got the formulas from the Concordat broadcast. They're going to try to ascend before the countdown ends. Stop them, Thrace ordered. But even as he said it, he knew it was pointless. The ships were already too close, already initiating the process. Through the viewports, they watched it happen. The ships approached the structure. And one by one, they began to change, hulls becoming transparent, energy signatures shifting into frequencies that shouldn't exist, and then slowly, fading from normal space. They're gone, Kes whispered, moved into dimensional space, following the humans. Did it work? Thrace demanded. Are they still alive? Unknown. They're beyond our sensors now. But Commander, I'm reading similar attempts at the other 17 sites. Thousands of ships, millions of beings, all trying to follow humanity's path. Selene appeared on the bridge, her form more solid than usual. It's spreading. The knowledge is out. Some species are embracing it. Others are trying to suppress it. The Concordat is collapsing. Then we have to find another way, Thrace said. We need to understand what's really happening. Why the countdown? What humanity is actually coming back to do? Vesera had been quiet, processing data in the ship's analysis chamber. She emerged now, her light cores dim. I think I understand. The structures aren't just anchors. They're gates. Humanity and the others. They've been building something in dimensional space. Something that needs these gates to manifest in our reality. What kind of something? Thrace asked. A weapon, a shield, maybe both. Vesera pulled up the human scientist's recording again. She said they would remember being afraid. That their mortality would be their anchor. What if that's literal? What if they're building something that can exist in both spaces? Something that remembers what it's like to be real and mortal, to fight what's coming, Selene finished. The thing that hunts developed civilizations. They're building a defense that spans dimensions. The countdown read 32 hours. Across the galaxy, more ships disappeared into dimensional space. Some species sealed their borders, refusing to let the knowledge spread. Others began desperate research programs trying to understand the formulas before the deadline. And in the dark between stars, in spaces where physics broke down and reformed, something vast began to wake. Humanity, transformed and strange, but also remembered. Still carrying the weight of 10 billion mortal lives in their transcendent consciousness, they had spent 800 years learning, growing, preparing, and now, finally, they were ready to come home. The question that haunted Thrace was simple. Would their home recognize them when they returned? Or would the Concordat greet them as invaders and start a war that neither side could win? He checked the countdown again. 31 hours and 47 minutes. Time was running out for peace, for preparation, for understanding, but not for fear. Fear, Thrace realized, was just beginning. And maybe, just maybe, that was exactly what humanity was counting on. The countdown reached 0. Thrace stood on the bridge of his ship, positioned between Earth and the massive structure in the Oort cloud. Around him, a fleet had gathered. Not a military fleet exactly. Ships from 19 different species, all waiting to see what would emerge. Some carried weapons, others carried recording equipment. All of them carried fear. Structures are activating, Kess reported. Her forearms moved across the controls with frantic precision. All 18 sites simultaneously. Energy readings are off the scale. Commander, space itself is bending around them. The structure before them began to pulse with light that wasn't light, colors that had no names. The beam that had pointed into deep space for 800 years suddenly reversed, aiming inward, toward the heart of the Sol system. Contact, Selene gasped. I feel them. Thousands of consciousnesses, millions, they're coming through. Oh gods, they're so vast, reality cracked. That was the only way Thrace could describe it. Space itself split open like a wound, and through that wound something emerged. Not ships, not even beings in any traditional sense. They were presences. Vast consciousnesses that existed in multiple dimensions at once. He could see them and not see them. Feel them pressing against his mind like gravity presses against matter. And at the center of it all, humanity. They had changed. No longer 10 billion individuals, but something more unified. A collective consciousness that somehow maintained the memory of individuality. Thrace could sense their thoughts bleeding into normal space. Mathematics and music and memory all woven together. Then they spoke. Not with sound, but directly into every mind within light years. We have returned. It was the broadcast. The same 3 words. But now Thrace understood. It wasn't a threat. It was a statement of fact. A promise kept. More presences emerged through the gates. Other species that had ascended over millions of years. The Concordat recognized some of them from ancient records. Civilizations that had vanished at their peak now returning in forms beyond comprehension. They're not attacking, Kess said, her voice filled with wonder. They're just waiting. Humanity spoke again, their voice resonating in every language simultaneously. We left you a warning, a choice. We hoped you would prepare, but we see now that fear paralyzed you, as it nearly paralyzed us. Vesra stepped forward, her crystalline body glowing bright. Why did you come back? Why now? The human consciousness focused on her. She felt it like standing before a star. Because it is time. Because what we fled from is no longer content to wait. It is coming and you are not ready. The view screens flickered. Images appeared. Deep space beyond the galactic rim, and there, moving through the void, something impossible. It looked like darkness given form. Like hunger made solid. A presence so vast that it made even ascended humanity seem small. It was feeding. As they watched, it reached a star system on the galactic edge. The system had been home to a developing civilization, not yet spacefaring but showing promise. The darkness descended, and in moments everything was gone. Not destroyed, consumed, as if the system had never existed at all. This is what called to us, humanity said. This is what calls to every species that reaches a certain threshold of development. It presents itself as evolution, as transcendence, as the next step. But it is a lie. The true choice is simple. Evolve on your own terms, or be consumed on its terms. We chose evolution. We became what we are now, and we discovered that we were not the first to make this choice. The other ascended species moved forward, their presences overlapping with humanity's. Together they formed something greater, a collective that spanned dimensions, a shield of conscious will against the consuming darkness. For 800 years, we have been preparing, learning, growing, strong enough to face what hunts us, and now we return to offer you the same choice we made. Ascend with us, become more than what you are. Become weapons and shields and warriors in spaces, beyond your current understanding, or remain as you are, and when it comes, we will do our best to protect you, but understand without ascending. You will always be prey, always be vulnerable, always be limited. The Concordate fleet remained silent. Thrace could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on every species present. Some had already chosen to ascend, following humanity's path through the gates, but most had waited, feared, doubted. How long do we have? Thrace asked, surprised at his own courage to speak to these vast beings. 12 years, humanity answered. That is when it will reach the core systems. That is when the feeding will begin in earnest. You have 12 years to prepare, to choose, to become. Vesera's voice was small but steady. And if we don't choose? If we stay as we are? Humanity's presence softened. For a moment, Thrace felt something almost like sorrow bleeding through. Then we will fight for you, die for you, if necessary, because we remember what it was like to be mortal, to be afraid, to be small and brave and desperately clinging to existence. That memory is our strength, our weapon, our purpose. We did not ascend to abandon you. We ascended to save you. The darkness on the screens moved closer, slow but inevitable, a patient predator that had been hunting civilization since before the galaxy formed. But understand this, humanity continued. We are strong, but it is stronger. We are many, but it is vast. We can delay it, wound it, make it costly for it to feed here, but we cannot stop it alone. You must choose, not out of fear, not out of desperation, but out of understanding, out of the knowledge that survival sometimes means becoming something new. Chancellor Vexmora's voice crackled across the communications channel. You ask us to give up our very nature, our identity, everything that makes us who we are. No, humanity said firmly. We ask you to add to who you are. We did not lose our humanity when we ascended. We expanded it. We became more. You will not lose your nature. You will transcend it. And if we refuse? Vexmora asked. Then we fight alone, and when we fall, you will follow. But the choice is yours. It must always be yours. That is the difference between us and what hunts us. We offer choice. It offers only consumption. Across the fleet, beings began to make their decisions. Some ships moved toward the gates, their crews ready to attempt ascension. Others remained, choosing to stay as they were. There was no judgment from humanity. No pressure, only patient understanding. Thrace looked at his crew. Kessa Solena Vesera. They had come so far together. Learned so much. What do we do? He asked them. Vesera's light cores pulsed with determination. We prepare, we learn, and when the time comes we make our choice with full knowledge of what it means. We have 12 years, Solene added. 12 years to understand what ascension really means, to help our species decide, to be ready. Kess nodded her foreheads, and in the meantime we stand with them, with humanity and the others, because whether we ascend or not, that thing out there is coming, and fear won't stop it. Only courage will. Thrace felt something shift in his thorax. Not fear anymore. Purpose. Then we return to the Concordate. We tell them everything, and we help them prepare, not for invasion, for survival. One more thing, humanity said, their voice gentle now. We left you our cities, our books, our art and music and history, everything. That made us human. We left it all intact. Because if we fall, if the darkness consumes us, if our ascension fails, we want you to remember us as we were. Mortal, flawed, afraid, but brave enough to become something more. Remember, that courage when you make your choice, remember. That fear is not weakness, it is the price of consciousness, of caring, of love. We were afraid, too. We still are, but we chose to face that fear, together. and it made us strong enough to stand between you and the arc. The presences began to fade, not leaving, but shifting into defensive positions around the galaxy, creating a perimeter, a shield of transcendent consciousness protecting the mortal civilizations within. Thrace watched them go and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. The broadcast had been right. Humanity was coming, not as conquerors, not as gods, but as protectors who remembered what it meant to need protecting. The countdown was over. The war was beginning, and the galaxy would never be the same. But they had 12 years. 12 years to prepare, to grow, to decide what they would become. And in the dark between dimensions, humanity and the other ascended species began their work. Building fortifications from thought itself, preparing weapons that existed in spaces beyond reality, training for a war that would determine the fate of conscious life itself. They had answered the call. They had become what was necessary. And now they stood ready. The last human broadcast had been 3 words: "We are coming." Now those words meant something new. Not a threat, not a warning. A promise. Humanity had come home, and they had brought an army of light to stand against the darkness. The only question remaining was whether it would be enough.